I've taught sex ed to thousands of young people over the years. And between that and my job, I've been asked every question under the sun. Literally nothing shocks or surprises me anymore. But there is one word that comes up again and again. Should. When should? Who should? How big should? There is a should for everything. But of course, when it comes to sex, there is only one should. You should communicate your wants, needs, boundaries, consent. But how well are we really taught to do that? We are, by every metric, the most connected generation in history. Texts, snaps, DMs, 24/7 access to anyone, anywhere, anytime. But here's the thing about that kind of communication. It is fast, it's efficient, but it's impersonal, ambiguous, disconnected. And the same thing is happening with sex. When was the last time you saw anything sex-related online? And when was the last time you had an open, honest, vulnerable conversation with another human being about sex? Because that gap between digital hyperconnection, hypersexualization, and real life disconnection and silence, that's the crisis I want to talk about. This is not just an inconvenience. It's a communication breakdown with devastating consequences. We are surrounded by sex, but for the most part, we ain't any better at talking about it. And for all the sex positivity you see online, in real life, confusion, awkwardness, silence. These days, young people are taught to look sexy before they even know what consent is. Because we live in a world saturated with sexualized media, explicit content, performative pressure. But let's be clear, there is a big difference between exposure and education. I can't tell you how many patients I've met who've never even looked at their own bits, let alone be able to name all the parts. Just because we see more sex, it doesn't mean we understand it any better. Being bombarded with porn doesn't teach you how to have a conversation about sex. It teaches you how to perform sex, how to copy what you've seen, meet unrealistic expectations, how to fake confidence instead of building connection. A culture that sexualizes before it educates, if it ever does. Devastating. The Children's Commissioner released a report just last month, and I quote, "This report should read as a map of what rock bottom looks like. Not only is it now normal for children to see pornography before they leave primary school, it is normal for that porn to be the most violent and extreme content online." Primary school. And the effects? We see it in clinic. I had a 16-year-old girl say to me she wasn't very good at sex. I asked her what she meant. "Well, my boyfriend says I don't make enough noise and I don't look like I enjoy it when he chokes me." I asked her if she'd ever had a conversation with him about this. Had she ever even said she wanted to be choked? Just always happens. I've had teenage boys ask me if it's okay that they don't want to choke someone. A young woman in tears because her vulva is wrong, because it doesn't look like the ones in porn. I had a young guy devastated he couldn't make his girlfriend orgasm. She was, by the way, she just wasn't squirting, so he didn't think it counted. So many patients doing things they didn't want to do, gagging, slapping, anal, but felt expected to do because that's what they've seen. Countless guys unable to get erections in real life scenarios because compulsive porn viewing has completely rewired their arousal pathways. This is the world we're handing over. A world where the line between pleasure and performance is completely blurred. So much confusion about how desire, arousal, and pleasure actually work. Because real sex, it's not performance. It's messier, funnier, emotionally complex, but we don't teach any of that. We have a generation of people who could fake an orgasm, but can't say the word orgasm to their partner. Can't say orgasm to a doctor. Even worse, doctors who can't say orgasm. This is not sexual liberation. This is sexual miseducation. So what of the role of the healthcare professional? Well, as a sexual health consultant doctor, I can care for some of society's most vulnerable and stigmatized people. Asylum seekers, sex workers, people who use drugs, members of the LGBTQIA+ community. And in these rooms, we're not just talking about symptoms. We can be dealing with some of the most taboo, often traumatic parts of someone's life. We have to earn trust, build rapport, create safety fast. Now, one of the things I love about my specialty, we don't do hierarchy. In fact, we actively dismantle it. We are the medics who swapped stethoscopes for lube. The white coats for, a lot of us, tattoos and piercings. That outdated model, doctor knows best, that taught us to be clinical, detached, no. If I want someone to open up to me about the most private parts of their lives, then I have to meet them as my full, authentic self. So, yeah, I'm a doctor, but I'm also a mum, a professional bikini model, an acupuncturist, an aspiring pilot. I'm also a woman who laughs a lot. I am ridiculously passionate and overexcitable, and I am highly imperfect. And that's who you'll get when you sit in front of me. You see, humans are intuitive. We sense inauthenticity, and we don't trust it. And in a clinical space, trust is everything. Our patients don't just listen to what we say. They feel whether they're safe, whether we care. And that intuition, we have it too. It is the thing that no algorithm, chatbot, or machine will ever replicate. Because it's not just what our patients say, it's what they don't say. That flicker change in facial microexpression, the slight glance away, the change in posture, that's the real medicine. How often the real reason someone's in your room shows up at the end, disguised as a joke, throwaway comment. A woman in her 50s. I haven't had sex since menopause, a bit old for all that now. When I ask her more, her relationship's broken down. She's lonely. She's severely depressed. And for the record, you are never too old for sex. A young guy makes a casual joke about masturbation, which, when explored with care, actually reveals a serious porn addiction, a deep fear of intimacy. It is our job to notice the thread, to gently, curiously pull, let the story unfold. But here's the problem. Too often, as doctors, we're already working like algorithms. We've got diagnoses to rule out, boxes to tick, KPIs to hit, and in that super efficient process, we lose the person. Our efficiency flattens what should be a rich human conversation. And remember, what matters to us clinically is not always what matters to the patient. So consider also how we ask questions. Does it hurt when you have sex? Totally valid, clinically useful, and yet I'll rarely use it. Do you find sex pleasurable? Now that question is the key to everything. You see, if there's pain, it'll still come out, but so will much more. Relationship dynamics, desire, arousal, shame, fear, confidence. That question gives me a whole sexual biography. You know, people are often surprised when I ask about pleasure. Actually, they're relieved, because no one else does. And I am still baffled, frankly disappointed, it doesn't form a standard part of a sexual health consultation. You see, somewhere along the way, just like with sex ed, it's become all about disease and pregnancy prevention. But sexuality isn't a risk factor. It's a core part of who someone is. And if we can't deal with this with empathy, nuance, and curiosity, then what on earth are we doing? It's important to remember also that our patients may not have the words, not right away. Two patients spring to mind. A white woman in her 60s. She'd already been treated twice for a urinary tract infection. She kept using the word pain, not because it was the right one. It was the least embarrassing one she could find. And an Asian lady in her 50s. She'd been dismissed by multiple doctors before seeing me. She kept using the word flushing, waving her arms around, desperate to explain something she could feel, but she couldn't name. With both of these women, I said to them, I don't think I'm fully grasping what it is you're trying to tell me, but I really want to. And because I stayed with them, I asked again, differently, I let them lead the conversation. It soon became clear that both of these women were suffering from persistent genital arousal disorder. Imagine the discomfort of ongoing arousal completely disassociated from desire, the shame, the isolation, the relief on their faces when I understood, named it, explained it, validated it, was palpable. Because that's how it is when someone finally feels heard. You know, I have said to so many patients over the years, I really feel like there's something else you're not telling me. And I don't want you to leave the room having not been able to say what it is. And do you know what happens when I do that? They pause, they look at me, and they tell me the real reason they came. Because that kind of humility and openness, it's rarely unreciprocated. And that quiet gut feeling that something's being left unsaid, it is almost never wrong. And finally, we cannot pretend when it comes to sex that we are dealing with a purely physical act. It's all in your head, says the doctor, dismissing, diagnosing, detaching. Well, here's the kicker. Of course it's all in your head. That's where your whole world is. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your memories, your fears, your self-worth. So when someone comes into your room worried about their body or their sex life, they're not just bringing a symptom, they're bringing a whole universe of experiences. A culture that's told them what's normal, a religion that shaped their shame, a society that sold them a story. They're bringing their whole sexual history and wondering whether this room is safe enough to unpack it. Sex doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's filtered through every lens we've ever known. Upbringing, identity, taboos, fantasy, performance, pain. And if we as healthcare professionals can't make space for all of that, then we're really just ticking boxes and pretending. So here we are, living in this hyper-connected world where genuine human connection is rare. A world that talks about and shows sex constantly, but rarely shows meaningful, honest communication about sex. This honest communication doesn't just play out into the bedroom, it spills out into the clinic room, with patients bringing all of the confusion, awkwardness, shame, and stories that society has sold them, right back from childhood. So, notwithstanding the urgent need to protect our children from online harm, what if we all decided to communicate differently? To ask with curiosity and patience, to speak with authenticity and vulnerability, to listen with compassion and empathy, to sacrifice efficiency for connection. Because this isn't just about sex. Real connection, whether it's in the bedroom, the clinic, or the world, it only begins when we stop performing and we start engaging as whole, imperfect humans.